Welcome to a video preview from theplayersaid.com. My name is Grant. I received a prototype copy of this game called by Stealth and Sea, which is a solitaire design that does have a couple co-op opportunities. You're basically going to split up controlling your SLCs, which are your manned torpedoes. But the game is a solitaire design, which is coming out to Kickstarter on Tuesday, February the 25th from Dan Verson Games. And the game is designed by Nicola Seguini, who assisted mainly in the historical research of the game and the background of the game. And the main designer is David Thompson. David Thompson, as you know, has done several war games over the past 2 to 3 years. Most notably Pavlov's House, also from Dan Verson Games. Castle Itter, which came out last fall from Dan Verson Games. And then Undaunted Normandy, which was from Osprey Games. So he's also done some Euros, War Chest, and other different skirmish level games for What Remains, etc. But this game, I think, is a labor of love, frankly. As I've talked with David about this over the past 6 or 8 months. I also did an interview that we'll be posting with David on our blog. Actually, before you see this video, it will have posted the day before. But really a labor of love. It's a lesser known topic about World War II. It focuses on the Italian Imperial Navy in the Battle of the Mediterranean. And the Italians came up with these 2-man, slow-moving manned torpedoes, which in essence carried a warhead that they could then try to traverse their way, you can see up here, into a harbor. This is the Gibraltar Harbor. I think it's very well represented, but trying to sneak their way into these harbors and then do damage to these capital ships, transports, and even cargo ships, as you can see kind of off to the left here in the roadstead. We'll look at that a little bit more closely here in a moment. But really a cool game. So today I'm not doing a playthrough. I'm going to do kind of a hybrid example of play, looking at the different elements, and then talk about what I like about the game, why I find it interesting, what you can look forward to, because there's a lot of options. There's not only, I think there are 10 different missions. Let me double check that before I've read this rule book and looked at this playbook. There are 10 different missions, and there's a custom campaign variant. And actually, I wanted to show you the art. So this is the art on the mission guide itself. There's a front cover, which shows a 2-manned SLC going into a harbor. And then here on the back, you can see that they've made contact with a warship there in the background, and they are trying to get their warhead off and get it placed on the ship so that they can do their business of crippling the Royal Navy. But I'm going to do that hybrid, kind of play through, talk about some of the elements, and just give you a good feel for what the game is. So once again, solo design game where you are controlling one of these 3 SLCs. An SLC is an Italian word. Let me read that for you because I'm not going to butcher it. It's really bad. So it is, SLC stands for, and of course I can't find it now that I want to. They're referred to as manned torpedoes, but the SLC actually is an Italian word that they refer to quite often. And I'm just going to, here we go. Siluro Alenta Corsas, SLCs. They are slow-running torpedoes or manned torpedoes that were armed with a warhead, and they would go into these heavily protected harbors trying to do some damage. So you're going to control 3 of those. They are represented here, you can see on the map, by these counters. And you can see it's very creatively named SLC-1. But there's a surfaced side, and then there is an submerged side. You'll also notice above the silhouette of a manned torpedo is an arrow that points their facing. Facing is important in this game. In order to turn, you have to make a pilot check and then turn in the direction that you want to go. But as you can see in this scenario, the first scenario, which is in Gibraltar Harbor, and like I said, there's 10 of them. It is on the 30th of October, 1940. This was their first mission, and they were to go in here, hopefully to disable or destroy some of these large battleships here. Here, I'll show you the HMS Renown. It's worth 10 victory points. And then the HMS Barham, which is worth 10 victory points. I probably got them in the wrong spaces now. But there are other ships that you can also sink. The HMS Sheffield, that's worth 5. So if you can destroy that one, it's worth 5. And the HMS Fury is worth 3. There are multiple of those. Multiples, there are a couple of 5s. I'm sorry, only 1 5, and the rest are 3, except for these 2 large ones. Also off to the side in what is called the roadstead, you're going to see just a cargo ship, a run-of-the-mill cargo ship that is worth 1 victory point. Your goal in these scenarios is to gain as many victory points as you can by sinking ships, avoiding detection, avoiding capture, and successfully scuttling your experimental prototype SLC so that the Royal Navy doesn't get their hands on it, do research, reverse engineer it, and understand better how to stop you. So you're going to gain victory points for all of those things. I believe that this mission, specifically the historical victory point, was about 3. I think one of the ships was sunk, but that's the extent of the damage. So let's go ahead and look at the SLC cards themselves. Once again, this is prototype, so none of this is finished or completed. But as you look at these, there are 3 different subs. Each of those subs has a 2-man team. I'm going to show you this card. Birondelli and Pocagnini. It's going to tell you how many action points each of these subs has. We'll talk about that. This sub has 2 action points. If they were attacked by a craft, a patrol craft, and were hit, they will have been disrupted or stunned, I believe it's referred to. You'll notice they get flipped over, and on their red side, they only have 1 action point. You can then try to get back over by doing a stamina check to get back to your unstunned side, which gives you the 2 action points again. But these were historical pilots of these SLCs. Some who had great renown and were very, very successful and well known. Some not as much. They also sometimes have a special victory point award. This one says award a VP at the end of a mission when captured. They say in the manual, and David did a lot of research with Nicola, that when they were captured, Birondelli and Paganini were able to figure out how the Royal Navy protected their boats, and when they were released and returned, they had that information. So kind of an interesting historical side note. But there's your operators. You'll notice they're all different. Here's another one. Tessie and Pedretti, 2 action points, but they have a +1 repair skill. That is tracked here in the different types of skills that they have. There are 4 different types of skills: pilot, ops, repair, and stamina. Pilot is obviously changing direction, moving forward, doing those kinds of things with the SLC. Ops is things like getting around the subnet that is at the gates or the entrance to the harbors, taking off your warhead, attaching your warhead, etc. Repair is repairing damage that might be done to your transmission, ballast tank, or your warhead as you're going through the mission. And I will say, because these were prototype engines and machines, they had a lot of breakdowns. So the mission almost failed because they couldn't get to where they needed to get to. Stamina is recovering from attacks and stuns. And then you'll also notice there are different elements here that have these discs placed on them, different colored discs. The different type, it's the transmission, or what made the engine and the propeller turn, the ballast tank, which allows you to submerge and surface, the battery, which gives you power to move. You'll notice there are 2 discs there, and then the warhead itself. The other thing that's tracked is breathing gear, and this is called a surge token, and it's kind of it's a resource that you have. It's a luck, I would call it a luck-based resource where you're going to get to re-roll a dice that you messed up, or you can discard it to add +1 to your skill checks that turn. The other one is a wetsuit. A wetsuit really protects you and makes it easier for you to make a stamina check. If this is damaged, then it hampers you from recovering from being stunned and doing those other things. So those things are tracked, and you're going to do, the game follows a very outlined sequence of play, and you're going to do different steps. The first step that you're going to take care of is the fault track, but we'll talk about that here in a minute. If that fault track says do a repair check or your transmission fails, you're then going to do that, and if it fails, you lose that token onto the card. You can repair it and get it back. Sometimes, like the wetsuits typically disappear, they don't come back, nor do the battery charges. But back to these skills. So when it says 1 here, that refers to 1 6-sided dice or die that you are going to get. So you'll notice SLC2 has 2 in the repair column. When they do a repair check, they're going to roll 2 dice, and all you're trying to get is one of these dice to equal or exceed the number that's identified on the fault card or the action that you're trying to take. Most of the actions are 4s or 5s. Occasionally, like on repair checks, they are a 6. So it's very hard. So I'm going to roll 2d6. Hey, I rolled a 6 and a 4. Probably the best roll that I've had all weekend. But I would pass if the check was a 4 or higher, because I rolled a 4 and a 6. If the check was a 5, I would have still passed because I rolled a 6 because I happened to roll 2 dice. So that's what those skills are. Those skills are very important and very cool. You also will have the opportunity over a custom campaign over the 9 or 10 missions to increase your technology so you can improve the way these things perform by getting different fault cards in your deck. And you can upgrade the skill points by putting experience points or victory points into upgrading those skills. And you'll take, I'm trying to get some of these. So let's say I wanted to increase the repair skill 1 more. I'd replace that with a 3 after spending the requisite victory points. You can do that with all the other skills as well. And it doesn't change the numbers you have to roll. It simply changes the number of dice that you are rolling. So a very cool mechanic. The other thing about this game that is very, very cool, and we'll talk about it as we go through the example of play, is each sub gets 2 action points per turn. Those actions are chosen from a menu, and I'm going to go ahead and just refresh my memory. I've used them all dozens of times. But you can never use, in those 2 action points, you can never use the same action twice in a round. So you can't do, let me show you this one, a full move while you're surfaced twice. But the really cool thing about this system is it's a risk versus reward or a press your luck type system. So you'll notice if you spend 1 action point for a full move while you're surfaced, you're going to have to roll a pilot check of a 4 or higher on a d6. So remember, pilot, each of these guys have a 1 skill in piloting. They're just not that good yet. So they're going to get 1d6. They're going to have to roll. Let's go ahead and roll and see what happens. Of course, this is what happened to me all weekend. I rolled a 2. So with the roll of a 2, they would fail that check. So you took a risk. Now, you still want to move, but unfortunately you cannot take that same action again, and you are surfaced, so you can't take the full move submerged because you're not submerged. You'd have to then do a ballast check to make yourself become submerged. You can do what's called just a move. This is a very easy, simple, and you'll see it says action point cost 1. There's always a success, no skill check. You're going to get to move 1 space. So if you look over here to the left, if I did SLC 3, I'm going to get to move 1 space. Now, you can see if you do that the whole game, you've only got 12 turns to get this mission accomplished. You're not going to win. So you've got to be successful at some of these moves, some of these actions, or you're not going to get where you want to be. So there are 3 different types of move. Normal move, surfaced or submerged, just gives you 1 space. Full move while surfaced gives you 3 spaces. Full move submerged gives you 2 spaces. And remember, you can use 1 action to do a roll, or you can use both of your actions to guarantee success and move forward. So there's a lot of opportunity for you to make those decisions at that point, and that creates a lot of tension. Because once again, you're running against the clock. Here, I'm going to move it back over here. You can see, here's the time track. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. There are only 12 turns for this mission, 0:30 to 0:600. Some of the other missions are longer or shorter depending on the historical constraints. But you're moving against this, and you've got to figure out how to be successful very quickly and move ahead. I really like that. So I love that economy and management of those scarce resources, your actions. The other type of actions that you can take involve diving, surfacing, that's using your ballast tank to get up above water or underwater, change direction, either surfaced or submerged. You can evade a net. Once again, this is a subnet, which is going to stop you from getting into the harbor. You can recover. That is when a crew has been hit by a patrol craft and they are stunned. Remember, turned over to their red side. You're going to do a stamina check to hopefully meet it and move over to your unstunned side. You can do a repair on any of these systems here: transmission, ballast, battery, or warhead. You cannot do a repair to your wetsuit. Once it rips, tears, or becomes defective, you're in trouble. You can detach the warhead from your vehicle, which has to be done prior to you then attaching it to a warship. So that's a 2-step process. And that becomes the opportunity where if you're pressed for time, or you absolutely only have 1 or 2 turns left, you might use 2 actions to make sure you ensure yourself that you're going to succeed, because you don't have to make a roll. So you can also, once again, attack the ships. You can abort a mission, meaning rather than get killed or captured, which negatively affects your score at the end, you can abort a mission and actually run away. You can scuttle your submarine, or your mini torpedo, unmanned or manned torpedo. If you don't scuttle them and they're captured, you're going to lose victory points, and then you can try to escape, swim to safety. So those are the different actions that you can take. Once again, they're all tied to one of these 4 skills, and you're going to have to roll dice or make a decision to use 2 of those skill action points to make no skill check and automatically succeed. In my opinion, that's one of the best parts of this design. And as you play through it, you'll be like, oh man, you can just feel the tension and the need to do something, and you have to make that decision at that time. So we covered the SLCs. I'm going to take you through a fault check really quickly. But before we do that, I wanted to show you the board. So here's a good look at one of the, I believe there are 3 boards included in the game for the 3 different harbors. You can see up here in the upper left, you have a turn sequence printed on the map. The only problem I had about the turn sequence is, 1, I thought they needed to have numbers on them, and 2, I felt like it needed to be bigger. Maybe put it in this area where I know you're not going to use that. I just felt like it was a little hard to see and a little hard to remind myself. But that turn sequence, pretty simple. Fault check phase, SLC phase, which is where you take your actions. Fault check is where you're going to see if your equipment fails. Harbour Defense phase is when the AI defenses, which are listed here on the right, very well done, where those are going to take action. And they have things like searchlights, an underwater dive team, patrol craft counters. I'll show you a couple of those here. So these are a couple examples of patrol craft that are going to come out if you are spotted and detected by the searchlights. They have a ready side and an exhausted side. They can't attack you when they're exhausted. They're only exhausted when they basically initially sprint up to you. But here's a couple examples of those. There are 4 of those in the game. These detected tokens, these are going to be placed on the individual SLCs if they are detected by the various defenses, like the searchlights or like the patrol craft. And that's going to remain on there until the end of the turn when the cleanup phase happens. So that's something important to remember. You can see very clear map. It is done at night. You know, these missions are after midnight, so it's black. I really like that. It's a thematic touch. And I know David worked a lot on these layouts. He used the historical diagrams showing where the moles were and the entrances and the subnets and the different defenses. I think he did a great job of putting those on the board. But the real key parts are the turn sequence, the harbor defenses, the time track. And then the other thing, you can see the SLCs there are represented. That is when your SLCs escape and or are scuttled. You're going to put your counters up there, reminding yourself that, hey, I got away. So that's going to give you a certain amount of, sorry, I have hiccups right now. Certain amount of victory points at the end of the game. And I think that's a great way to remind you. So well done on the map. Well done on the cards. So what we're going to do now is I'm going to take you through a fault check phase where we do the fault checks. And I'm going to show you the forward positioning card is what it is called right there. I also will show you an example of the alert deck during the harbor defense. And I might even show you just a couple quick actions by some of these SLCs. But by no means am I going to take you through an entire playthrough. I've seen several of these playthrough videos out there on YouTube. The Gimpy Gamer does a good series. I think that David has a couple of videos out there. I wanted to show you the basics and then talk to you about my opinion. So let's go ahead and look at let's actually look at the forward positioning card first. So because this is a prototype, I only was provided the first map and then the first 3 forward positioning cards. So these are kind of like the mission. You can see this is La Spezia. It identifies where the harbor is, and it gives you the different conditions that you're going to operate under. Fatigue. Because we're put so far away, the operators were a little bit tired. Therefore, they only had 1 of these surge tokens provided to them. Some of the other missions, as you advance, you're going to get 2 surge tokens. So that's going to be 2 opportunities to gain +1 on all your rolls that round and or to do a reroll. So a valuable thing. But here we're going to begin with 1, and then it takes you into the fault check, which these happen before the mission starts. So you're not going to do 2 fault checks every time. You're actually going to roll a die when the normal turn sequence takes effect. You're going to roll a die. You're supposed to have a 3-sided die. I have a 6-sider here that I'm just going to, 1 and 2 represents SLC1. 2 and 3 represents, 3 and 4 SLC2. 5 and 6 SLC3. So you're normally going to roll whatever SLC you roll. They're going to do a fault check, and then you move on to the next phase. So let's look at a fault check phase. So let's start. Based on La Spezia, we're going to do 2 fault checks for each one of these SLCs before the mission even starts. I want to show you how bad it can get, and I hope I roll very, very poorly. Let me actually move my dice tray there where you can see the results. I'm going to put the dice here. So let's go SLC1. So we're going to pull the first fault card off the top of the deck. A warhead fault. So something's already wrong with the warhead. So what you're going to do is you're going to look here at this repair check 6. If you fail, which most likely I'm going to fail, I'm going to be honest here, I'm going to place the token, the warhead token or red token, onto this card as a reminder that it can be replaced back onto the SLC with a repair action. You can see it's written there on the bottom of the card. So a repair check of 6. We're going to put this one up here. We are going to roll 1d6. I'm not going to use my surge token, and I rolled a 2. I failed. So I'm going to move my warhead token, right there, you can see it, onto this nice circular space, which reminds me, so until that is repaired, I cannot detach or attach my warhead to a ship. Yay. All right. The second fault card drawn, according to La Spezia, for this SLC-1 is a battery fault. Yay. My favorite. If I fail here and the repair check is a 6, I'm going to discard one of my 2 battery tokens. If I ever run out of battery tokens, my ship is dead in the water and there's nothing I can do. At that point, I've got to try to scuttle it, send it to the bottom of the ocean, and swim away and escape. So here, we're going to go ahead and roll that same 6-sider, and I rolled a 5. Good roll, but I fail. So I'm going to take one of my 2 available battery charges, and they actually get discarded. They do not go on the card. This card is now finished and goes into the discard pile. So as you can see, after the first fault checks that are required by the forward positioning card, already SLC-1 is seriously in trouble. The warhead is defective, and they've lost a battery charge. Let's go on to SLC-2. Let's see if it gets any better. My breathing gear, which I'm not as upset about breathing gear, although it is not good. Repair check 6. If I fail, I have to discard the breathing, the wet suit. Yeah, the breathing gear. I have to discard my surge token. So let's go ahead and roll. Sorry, I got confused there for a minute. I rolled a 6. That's awesome. So I succeed. I have passed the test. I was able to notice a problem with my breathing gear, and before it could happen, I fixed it. The next one I draw is a ballast tank fault. So we're going to put that one here. You'll notice it has a circle on it, so it can be where you put that disc. It has a repair check of 6. You'll notice, and I rolled, let me go back because I kind of messed up. All right, the breathing gear, it's a repair check. I should have rolled 2 dice. Luckily, I rolled 1 and still succeeded. But I'm going to roll 2 dice because I have a 2 skill in repair. So let's try to fix the ballast tank. Hey, very good. I rolled a 6 and a 4. So my 6 allows me to pass this. This is then discarded because I succeeded. So you can see SLC-2 had a pretty good go of it. They succeeded at both repair checks and were able to come out unscathed. Part of that is because of that 2 repair, which is very nice. But part of it also is luck. So that's one thing you got to remember about this game. There's an element of luck. But once again, it's a game. All right, let's go to SLC-3. They have a stamina of 2. So any skills that require a stamina check, they're going to get 2 dice. So you have to be paying attention to that. Their first fault check is a repair check 5 for their wetsuit right here. So they're going to roll 1 dice. If they failed, they discard their wetsuit. So I need a 5 or higher. So I failed. Their wetsuit is discarded, never to return. Let's draw the second of their fault, which once again is required by La Spezia, the forward positioning card. This is the breathing gear. We're going to do a repair check of 6, and if it fails, I discard that token from the game. My guess is I'm going to lose that. And I roll a 3, and I do. So it gets discarded. So overall, not too bad. These 2 SLCs generally can do whatever they want. And then SLC-1 really only lost a battery charge, which is not good because there are about 4 or 5 other battery failure cards in there. And they can't use their warhead until they do a repair action. So that's okay. So that was just La Spezia, the forward positioning card. Now we move to the turn sequence. We're going to do the fault check. Remember I said we're going to roll you'll have a D3 in the final game. We're going to roll a 6-sider. I rolled a 2. A 1 and a 2 represent SLC-1. So SLC-1's going to draw, yay, 1 more fault check card. And it's a battery fault. This could be very, very, very bad. So I still have my surge token. I may want to use that to re-roll this roll, but we'll see. So repair check 6. Gosh, that's just terrible. And this just seems to happen. Hey, I rolled a 5. I should have discarded this to give myself a +1, but I don't think you can do that at this point. I'm going to go ahead and discard and re-roll. So I roll 1 and I fail. And my battery conks out. These guys are dead in the water. So at this point, they can't move. They can't do anything. So what they're going to try to do is they're going to scuttle and try to escape. That's what they're going to do with their actions. So we're now past the fault check phase. Pretty simple stuff. We now move to the SLC phase, where each of these are going to take their actions in whatever turn order they decide. So let's go ahead and start with SLC 1. So we're going to go ahead and try to do a scuttle action. Action point cost of 1, and it's an op check of 4. I'm under no pressure at this point. I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I need to roll a 4 or higher. I roll a 6. Where were you when my battery was in danger? So now I have scuttled my SLC. I'm going to take the SLC 1 counter, and I'm going to move it over here. If you remember on the board, there is this SLC 1 space successfully scuttled. Unfortunately, I'm out of the game, but that's going to earn me a victory point. Now, if I can escape, it's going to give me another victory point. So that's kind of what you want, or that's kind of the way these things are going to go. So let's go ahead and do an escape. It's action point 1, and it's a stamina check, which you'll notice I do not have my breathing gear, so I'm -1 stamina. So let's see. I just need to get a 4, 5, or 6. Okay, 0500 or earlier. So I'm +1. -1 if inside a harbor. -2 per patrol craft. Nope. -2 and if in Algiers or Alexandria. No. So I'm going to roll a d6 and I'm going to modify it by +1 because it's earlier than 0500. I failed. So that's okay. Their action points are now done. We just need to remember that they are floating in the water and they need to be escaped in order to avoid capture. Let's now move to SLC 2. We're going to take a couple of actions. We're going to simply do a move. We're going to do a move surfaced so that we can get the maximum spaces. It requires a pilot check of 4. I'm going to go ahead and risk it. Let's roll. So I rolled a 5. So SLC 2 can move 1, 2, 3 spaces in the facing that they are pointing. Then what I want to do to make it harder for them to spot me is I'm going to go ahead and submerge myself using my ballast tank. So I'm going to take a dive action. And I am surfaced, so it costs 1 point, and it's also a pilot check 2, or a pilot check 4. So let's hope. I rolled a 4. So then I go to my SLC counter, turn it from the surface side to the submerged side. Let's see if that's, 3. All right, so he has successfully moved forward. He has now submerged and is harder to detect. We'll talk about that here in a moment when we go to the Harbour Defense phase and look at the alert card deck. So they are done SLC 2. SLC 3, we are going to attempt, and you'll notice our wetsuit and breathing gear are gone, so stamina checks are very, very, very hard. It's going to be difficult. We'll see how this goes. All right, so they also want to move forward. They're going to use 1 action point, hoping to roll 4 or higher. They don't. So they are stuck. So they have 2 options. They can do not a full move, but they have enough action points to do 1 move, which would be 1 space forward. I feel like a dive would be better. So we're going to try to dive, which is 4 or higher. And I rolled a 5. So they also flip to submerged. So there you go. That's our first SLC action phase. We have completed all the actions. SLC 1 was able to successfully scuttle their craft, but they are still there, can be spotted, and can be captured. SLC 2 moved forward and submerged itself. SLC 3 failed its move and then was able to submerge. So that's where we stand at this point. So now we go to the Harbour Defense phase. You'll notice here on this side of the board are the Harbour Defenses, and they are each listed here. In some missions, some of these are not in effect. So in this first mission, there is no underwater dive team. So I can actually cover that one up. It just kind of reminds me that I can't do that one. Nor is there a shore-based mortar. So we're going to cover both those up. So here we go. And as you look at this, you will see that the searchlights, as they are searching, they need to have a value of a 10 plus to spot a surfaced SLC or team, and an 11 plus for a submerged. Even though you're submerged, you're only 10, 12, 15 feet under the water, and they can still spot you as the lights go off your metal, and they're able to spot that. So I'm going to bring this alert deck over here. So the alert deck, I think it's 36 cards, and I'll show you before we draw them. The deck is made up of cards between 2 and 12, which represent the dispersion of 2d6. And you'll notice there's a couple 3s, there's a 7, a 6, a 5, an 8, a 5, another 8, and then there's this special one, which I'm not going to reshuffle this because it's great to have it that far down. This is an alert. A 12 is going to spot you every time on everything. But it says alert, remove the lowest numbered cards from the discard pile, maximum of 6, and then shuffle the deck. So this is a really cool mechanism, I think. Very well done in order to simulate kind of a timer and an escalation of difficulty. Because as the searchlights and the patrol craft and the men and the machines are looking for you, they're going to get better and better at it because they've ruled out certain areas, or they've already searched certain areas, or they have improved their spotting techniques, etc. It just gets higher and harder and harder. The alert level is higher. So when this is pulled, you're going to take the 6 lowest cards out, and we'll actually go through an example of that because I think that's a really cool thing. And then you're going to shuffle that deck with this back in, so it's going to make that deck harder and harder. You're removing the lower numbers. It's going to make it harder and harder for you to be successful or to not be spotted. So the Harbour Defenses are going to pull one of these alert cards for each SLC and team on the board. So we're going to start with SLC 1. It is scuttled, but the team is still floating in the water. So I'm going to go ahead and pull a card 7. Remember, they are surfaced, so it's going to be 10 or higher. I pulled a 7. So they are not spotted. Then we're going to do that for SLC 2, once again, for the searchlights. A 10. Hey, guess what? They are submerged. Therefore, they just barely missed them. So I'm going to throw that one there. The next one pulled is a 9. So a 9 also for SLC 3 allows them to go undetected. So that's the searchlights. You're then going to simply move down the Harbour Defenses. There is no underwater dive team in this mission, so we get to skip that. Patrol craft response for surfaced and for submerged. So we're actually going to look at each team and then refer to that table as the patrol craft, or simply moving around this part of the ocean looking for the teams. So team number 1, which is in this spot, we're going to go ahead and pull a card. They are surfaced, but not detected. So they need a 9 plus to be spotted. All right, very good. They are not spotted, which is very good for them. SLC 2 is submerged, and they're not detected, nor are they in the harbor. So they're going to be spotted on a 10 or higher. So there, they pulled a 7. They are not spotted. SLC 3 is also submerged, nor are they detected. they're going to be spotted on a 10 or higher, and I pulled an 8. So I don't know that this is a great example. Let me actually pull one. Let me actually pull that 12. I'm going to go ahead and act. We're going to act like we went through a lot of the deck and ended up pulling this number 12 because I really want to show you that because I think it's so well done. I thought David did such a wonderful job with that. So let's assume, once again, I pulled that 12 card, on SLC 3. So once again, they need a 10 or higher because they are not detected at this point. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to put a detected token on SLC 3. We are also going to take the lowest numbered patrol craft and move it directly in front of the detected SLC. So here we go. There's one of two choices. I'm going to put it right here. And you're going to flip it to its exhausted side. Therefore, it can't attack. It now simply has detected this guy. He's going to be easier to spot in the future until that gets removed. And then it's going to tail him and continue to look for him. If it ever is close by when it spots him, he can then move in. And then he's going to do an attack. And an attack is pretty simple. So let's just look at this real quick. You're just going to pull a die. You're going to refer to the patrol craft attack. If the SLC target is submerged, it's a 10 plus. It's surfaced, it's 7 plus. Let's say it's surfaced. Oh, he hits him. He's then going to become stunned. And you're simply going to turn over the operator's card to its red or stunned side. And remember, you're only going to have then one action point until you become unstunned. So that's kind of penalizing. So that's a look at those types of things. Now, let's go back to this alert card. I'm sorry, I feel like I'm jumping around. But once again, we're going to remove the lowest numbered cards from the discard pile up to 6 and then shuffle the deck. So the lowest numbered cards, let's see. I got some 5s. So you're going to find the lowest number, and then you're going to remove all the examples of that lowest number, I believe. Or is it just the various lowest cards? Let me double check that here, guys. I'm sorry. So let me read that for you. The 12 value alert deck card has a special feature. When you draw the 12 value card, resolve the Harbour Defense element as normal. Then search through the alert deck discarded pile and find all the cards of the lowest value, but with a value no higher than 6. Remove those cards from the game. Shuffle the discard pile back into the alert deck. So yes, you're going to find... So let's say this 2 wasn't in here, just for kicks and giggles. What other numbers? And they have to be no higher than 6. So there's a 5, there's a 4. Yeah, it looks like, yeah, there's 2 4s. There's 3 4s. And there's only 5 or 6 of each of these in the deck, so it's not like you can remove all of them. All right, so I found 4 examples or 4 instances of the number 4 card in the discard pile of the alert deck. I'm now going to remove those from the game. So let's throw those up there. I'm then going to take the unplayed portion of the alert deck cards along with the number 12, and I like to put the number 12 right in the middle of the deck. And then I'm simply going to shuffle that, and we will then use that now a little more difficult deck, because remember, we've removed 3 examples of a good number for us from the deck. It's now going to be a little easier for them to spot us. And that's something we need to be aware of. The mission's going to get more and more difficult as more and more people understand where we are. Sorry, I hit the camera. What we're doing and where we are going. So we did the patrol craft response. I showed you an example of an attack. Let's go back. If there are no detected ships or detected SLCs, then you're going to roll an 8-sided die, and you're going to refer to this little diagram, and the the patrol craft's going to move in that direction. So here I rolled a 1. It says to move this way randomly one space. Now, let's say there were a couple search craft over here, and this SLC was detected. Well, they're not going to roll on this random movement chart. They're going to move 2 spaces over here towards the detected SLC, and they're eventually going to get there and be able to attack it. So that's the way they move. If at the end of the game, or I'm sorry, at the end of the round, the patrol craft are ever 3 or more spaces away from any detected subs, they're going to then be removed from the map. And you may not have a patrol craft on the map occasionally, depending on what's happened, which is very nice. It makes it a little less stressful, allows you a little more time to go ahead and do what you need to do. But that's an example. Oh, and then the anti-torpedo net. This only comes into play here if an SLC is trying to attack that net and move through it. You can see if you're surfaced, there's an ops check. Ops is one of the skills. A check of a 3. A little easier when you're on the surface, but once again, you're going to be spotted easier. You're going to roll a d6. I rolled a 3. I made it through. So I successfully made it through. Now I have to decide which target I'm going to go towards. After that, then you do the cleanup phase. Detected tokens are removed from any submerged, which is very key, any submerged SLCs. You're going to remove that. That's when you remove the patrol craft if they're far enough away from any of the SLCs, and then you're going to restart. You're going to go back to the fault check phase, roll a d6 or a d3, consult which SLC, and then you're going to make a fault check. You're going to pull another card. Then you're going to take your actions again. Oh, you have to advance the timer, in the cleanup phase. But you can see after one or two turns, you're only going to be 3 or 4 spaces closer to your objective. So, one, there's a lot of tension to this game that I really like because you have to decide what targets and where you're going to focus on. You can be safe and go over here to the roadstead on the left side of the map here. I'm going to move this in front of the map to show you this part of my discussion. You can play it safe and you can run an SLC over here. They're not going to be as easily detected because they're not in the harbor. A lot of these detection rolls decrease when you're in the harbor. It's easier to spot you. A little more shallow water, a little better lighting, a little more familiarity, and a lot more people on patrol. But you can go over here and you can try to blow up these, and you're only going to get 1 victory point. Not bad. 1 victory point isn't terrible. Or you can try to be cautious, go in, and just attack these smaller valued ships. 3 victory points, 5 victory points. But the grand prize, and what I try to at least send one of my SLCs toward almost every time, are these 10-point vessels. The HMS Renown in this mission and the Barham in this mission. Because I'm telling you, you sink one of those, that's 10 victory points. Now, very difficult to escape and scuttle your craft, so you're going to lose some victory points, so it might end up being worth 8. And if you're playing the continuing custom campaign, your guys who captured are no longer available. So you may have built them up, added a couple of skills in a second or third mission, and if they get captured, you don't have access to them anymore. So there's a lot of those choices. If you're just doing the one-off missions, I've played this game, I think I've played 4 times now, plus I pushed the counters around a 5th time, just becoming comfortable, kind of like what I'm doing with you. In those 4 times, I played Mission 1 3 times, Mission 2 once, and Mission 3 once. I've had mixed results. My second play, man, I did amazingly. I sunk the Barham, I sunk the Sheffield. 2 of my 3 guys got away and scuttled their ship, so I got like 18 victory points. One of the examples, though, I think I got 2. A couple of my guys got captured, never sunk a ship, and only one of my guys got away. It's just, it really depends, frankly, on how you manage your SLC actions, whether you are more risky or whether you're maybe a little more reasonable of a player, and you're not going to take that opportunity and try to really push it. Also, sometimes luck, luck of the die. If you can't roll well, which none of us can really roll well, that's what rolling is about. It's not about deciding what you want to do. And you get unlucky and you lose battery, and like my SLC-1 did, you're going to be dead in the water. And it's very possible that one or two of your ships could be knocked out of the game before you've even started. And I'm going to tell you, that's very frustrating. It's happened. It happened in this mission where one of them got knocked out. But once again, that's part of the experience. This was not an easy thing to do. I told David in an email one time, I think these guys were crazy. Who in their right mind would ride a steel cylinder with a warhead on the tip 20 to 30 feet under the water with sharks and everything else in the ocean that can kill you and eat you? Not to mention the Royal Navy and all their craft are gunning for you. I just don't know why those guys would have done this, but they were brave, very skilled, and frankly, I think a little unhinged, but I think that's what it takes to be a good soldier, particularly a commando. But really an interesting concept. There are a lot of things that I like about this game. So in summary, I think there are three of my favorite parts. One is that concept of the alert deck, where you're drawing those cards, and eventually when that alert is pulled, you're going to look for the lowest card, and you're going to get rid of those. So it's technically going to make that deck harder and harder on you. I like that building difficulty. I also really like the management of the skills. Let's move back over to the SLCs. The management of these skills is very fun. The management of these and trying to repair those is very fun. Very good concept that I actually like quite a bit. The other thing that I didn't talk to you about that I'm going to cover very quickly is as you have more and more success in these missions, there's a mechanism by which the Harbour Defenses actually continue to get a little better. So there are these deck, and I don't know if this is all the cards or if this is just a part, because once again, I don't have all the missions. But you'll notice this is an alert level 1, defense level 1 for searchlights. So this is assuming that things are improving for the Royal Navy. They've either developed new technology, they're on higher alert, etc. So if you look at this and compare it to the searchlights that have no level, searchlights with no level, it's detection on a 10 or an 11. Surfaced is 10, submerged is 11. With the level 1 defense, surfaced drops to a 9. So it becomes a little easier for them to see you if you're surfaced. Submerged is still an 11 plus, so it's still difficult. But there are, it looks like I don't have another level, but I think they go up higher than that. But they all improve, they get harder and harder. So I think that's very cool. A game that in essence is growing as you grow. As you get better at the game, it's going to get harder and harder and more difficult. So that's kind of the second thing that I really like about this game. The third thing is 30-minute playtime. I know I talked a lot. I think this video is almost an hour. But the honest truth is once you know the mechanics, the rules, you won't even have to look at the examples of your actions. You're just going to know. You're going to be able to do this game in about 30 minutes. 10 to 12 turns will take you 30 minutes. So I like those three elements. The alert deck's very cool. Love how these defenses change. And then I love that it's a quick playing game. A fourth thing that I really like that really doesn't lend itself to the playing of the game, this is really a labor of love. I think David and Nicola put a lot of time and effort into this. I know that I saw David put posts on Facebook and the internet asking people if they had these images of these different operators. So supposedly these are their images, actual images, which I think is a very high honor and a good way to remember those brave souls that did this. Even though I'm an American, these were Allied ships, but I can still respect their bravery and their ability to do this, and even their desire and know-how to to do this. It's amazing. So, and then I think finally, how many games do you have on a subject like this? I played a lot of war games. I played a lot of different types of war games. I've never seen a game on this subject other than the many games from High Flying Dice Games that deal with these issues. But Alexander and I discussed those. They're very simple. I mean, there's not the depth here that you have with the skills and the different technologies and the rolls. You're making a roll or two and moving on. But I think David said he used those games as an example for this, not necessarily had he played them or knew the rules necessarily, but he did use those as a basis. But I think David's developed a very cool system here, a system that lends itself to replayability. There's enough missions here, 9 to 10 missions, plus you can do a campaign mode. You can play this game 20 to 30 times before you're really going to start, to get into doing the same thing. I also really like the concept of the campaign where I can improve the technology levels. So let me show you the technology levels here on these different cards. So these are additional fault cards that are going to check, against your different equipment. And you're going to put these in as you have moved your technologies up. So you can see these are 2s. So David didn't give me once again, I don't have all the missions here. This is a prototype. But you can see breathing gear. Let me compare that to a level 1 breathing gear. So there's a big difference. So level 1 breathing gear, you're going to have a repair check of 6, and then you're going to discard that token from the game if you fail. So a breathing gear card number 2, second level of technology. The repair check is a 4. Man, that's much, much, much better. The fail is still discard the token from the game, but I'm assuming some of these maybe in the future allow you to even bring those back. But that's a good example of how these technology cards work. I think that's excellent. I think that's a great way to design this game to increase the difficulty and the replayability and the different functioning. Also, each of these forward positioning cards is different. Here you can see each SLC begins with 3 surge tokens. Remember in the first one, we were pretty knackered and we only had one surge token. This one, because you get dropped off a heck of a lot closer to your mission, you're going to have a lot more opportunities to do rerolls and extra things, so it's very valuable. This one even says, don't begin fault checks before beginning the mission. Boy, how nice would it have been for me to not have to make those fault checks and end up basically dying with SLC 1. So yeah, I like this game. One comment about the rules, and I'm going to show you the rule book here, and these are obviously things that you're going to see on the Kickstarter campaign. David is an excellent rules explainer. This is his rule book. He gives really nice graphics to help you understand where to move things. He gives a specific example of the rule that he just explained here, Patrol Craft Response. Here's written text helping you understand how that works. And you can see that's consistent throughout the rule book. He just does an excellent job of helping you understand exactly how to play. So that's one thing with David I think his games are very good at. Once again, I've played Pavlov's House, Castle Itter, Undaunted Normandy, and I believe his rules are absolutely fantastic. So there you have it, my kind of preview, my thoughts on, after 4 real plays and a 5th time of just pushing some counters around. We all do that, right? We throw everything on the board just to get it set up and see how it goes. But after 4 real plays, 5 times playing around with it, and then describing it to you here, I really like this game. Gonna be honest, I think this is a solid game. Particularly, it's made for solo wargamers. This is a game you can set up over a 2 or 3 week period. You may have 1 or 2 nights a week where you can do a mission or 2, and you're going to run through that campaign, and then guess what? You can start over. And I think you can even do a custom campaign where you pick, and I'll show you these different operators. But you can pick from these other operators who just have a different set of skills and abilities. Sorry. You know, these guys don't have one, neither do they. But 2 action points, they get an extra surge token for whatever reason. So there's a lot of these different customizable factors that help you. The other thing that I wanted to show you, and these came with the prototype, but there's a roster where you can kind of look and choose your guys, and then you can track them over missions. You can track their medals, their promotions, whether they were captured or not. And then here's a after action report sheet, which gives you the details. If you like to kind of keep track of those, this is something you could photocopy. We've all done that in DVG games. And then here's an after action report that continues. But you can see there's just a lot of different elements that will make this game replayable. Here is the action reference card rather than looking back at the rule book. So this will be a play aid. Very well done. I think the only thing I didn't like about the game is I always feel like having to roll 5s and 6s is just virtually impossible. So, you know, but I know that's a balance thing. I know the designers go through that. Having to roll a 6 for a repair check, you might as well not even try, although you saw that I did succeed at least a couple of times. So that's something I don't like. I feel like it might be a little punitive. Those fault checks are very, very devastating. But once again, those are going to get easier and easier as you go up in level and technology and skill. The only other thing I think I didn't like about the game is the turn sequence needs to be bigger and numbered, probably lower on the map so it's easier to see. Other than that, I think this is a very high quality game. So hopefully you check out the campaign. You can watch other people's videos, get their thoughts on it, and see where they stand. But I think as for me, and representing the player's aid, I think this is a game that I am very interested in owning, playing, diving into, and seeing where it takes us. So thanks for watching. Hope you like the video, and we'll see you the next time we do a preview. Thank you.